The marble floors of First National Bank gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights as customers rushed past the old woman slumped against the wall. Her worn wrapper, faded from years of washing, draped loosely around her frail frame. Dirt caked under her fingernails, and her gray hair hung in matted strands. Everyone stepped around her like she was invisible, some covering their noses, others averting their eyes in disgust. "Security!" A shrill voice cut through the banking hall. "There's a vagrant in here." The old woman lifted her head slowly, revealing piercing dark eyes that seemed to see everything. Those eyes fixed on a man at the VIP counter, Chidi Okonkwo, executive director of Okonkwo Industries, dressed in his Italian suit, laughing with the bank manager while his arm draped possessively around a young woman who wasn't his wife. What would you do if you discovered your husband's betrayal in the most unexpected way? Hit like if you've ever been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. The security guard approached, his hand already reaching for the old woman's arm. "Mama, you cannot stay here. This is a bank, not a shelter." "Wait," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I need to make a withdrawal." The guard laughed, not unkindly. "Mama, please, let me help you outside." But the old woman stood, steadier than her appearance suggested. She walked toward the VIP counter where Chidi was finalizing a massive loan application, 10 billion naira, for his new development project. The young woman beside him, Adiz, giggled as he whispered something in her ear. "Chidi," the old woman said. He didn't turn. The bank manager, Mr. Taiwo, frowned at the interruption. "Security, why is this woman still here?" "Chidi Okonkwo," she repeated, louder this time. Finally, he glanced over his shoulder, irritation flashing across his face. "Do I know you?" The old woman smiled, a strange, knowing expression. "You should. You're spending my money." Chidi turned fully now, his eyebrows raised in amusement. "Your money? Mama, I think you're confused." "Security, please. I'm Ngozi Okonkwo," she said simply. "Your wife." The banking hall fell silent. Customers stopped mid-transaction. Tellers froze at their stations. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause its humming. Chidi's face drained of color. That's impossible. My wife is dead? Missing? That's what you told everyone, isn't it?" Ngozi pulled off the dirty head wrap, revealing streaks of premature gray through what had once been lustrous black hair. 3 years, Chidi. 3 years since you declared me mentally incompetent, forged my signature, and had me committed to that psychiatric facility in Yaba. Adiz stepped back, her perfectly manicured hand flying to her mouth. "Chidi, what is she talking about?" "She's crazy," Chidi stammered, but sweat beaded on his forehead. "This woman is obviously disturbed. My wife died in a car accident 3 years ago. Everyone knows this." Ngozi reached in her tattered bag and pulled out a smartphone, an incongruous sight that made several people gasp. She tapped the screen and held it up. "Mr. Taiwo, I believe you'll want to verify the ownership of account number 002-445-8901. The bank manager's fingers flew across his keyboard. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. This can't be right." "What?" Chidi demanded. "The account. It belongs to Ngozi Okonkwo, CEO and majority shareholder of Okonkwo Industries." "Balance." Mr. Taiwo's voice cracked. 47 billion naira. The silence that followed was deafening. Ngozi smiled again, but this time it was sharp, dangerous. "The loan application you're processing, it requires my signature as majority shareholder. The houses you've been selling, the cars you've been buying, the trips to Dubai with your mistress here, all funded by my company. How did you escape?" Chidi whispered, forgetting to maintain his lie. "A nurse. One decent human being in that hellhole who realized I wasn't insane, just drugged. She helped me leave 6 months ago. I've been watching you, Chidi. Living on the streets, invisible, learning exactly what kind of man I married." Adiz backed away further. "You told me she was dead. You showed me a death certificate." "Forged," Ngozi said calmly. "Just like the power of attorney documents he used to access my accounts. Just like the mental health evaluation that had me locked away." Chidi's hand shook as he reached for his phone. "I'm calling my lawyer." Call him, Ngozi said. But first, Mr. Taiwo, I'd like to make that withdrawal now and freeze all subsidiary accounts linked to my company, effective immediately. The bank manager nodded frantically, gesturing for his staff. Of course, Madam CEO. Right away. As Chitty frantically dialed, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. He looked at the screen, and his knees buckled. The board of directors? Oh yes, Ngozi said, pulling out a second phone. I've been quite busy these past 6 months. Did you know your mistress Adiz has been recording your conversations? Including the one where you detailed exactly how you had me committed? Adiz's eyes widened in shock. I never. Not you, dear. The other Adiz. The one in Abuja. You didn't think you were his only one, did you? The young woman's face crumbled as the full weight of the betrayal hit her. Around them, customers had their phones out, recording everything. Tomorrow, this would be all over social media, all over Lagos, all over Nigeria. Ngozi, please. Chitty dropped to his knees, his Italian suit crushing against the marble floor. We could talk about this. You don't understand what I've been through. What you've been through. Ngozi's voice rose for the first time. You had me locked in a psychiatric ward for 3 years. They forced pills down my throat every day, tied me to beds, made me forget my own name. She pulled out a folder from her bag, water-damaged but intact. Divorce papers, already filed. The court date is next week. And the criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and false imprisonment, those were filed this morning. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Chitty scrambled to his feet, looking wildly toward the exit, but security guards had already positioned themselves by the doors. You won't get away with this, he snarled, his mask finally slipping completely. I have connections. Judges, politicians, all of whom will abandon you the moment they see tomorrow's headlines. Ngozi interrupted. Billionaire CEO returns from the dead to expose husband's betrayal. The domestic betrayal, the infidelity in marriage, the financial fraud, it's all documented. The police officers entered the bank, their faces grim. As they approached Chitty with handcuffs, Ngozi turned to leave. Wait, Chitty called out desperately. What about our children? What about Kemi and Tunde? Ngozi stopped, her shoulders tensing. Slowly, she turned back, and for the first time, real pain flickered across her weathered face. The children you told that their mother was dead? The children you've poisoned against me for 3 years. She pulled out a third phone, showing a video of 2 teenagers laughing at a birthday party. I've been watching them too, Chitty. Watching you turn them into versions of yourself. Entitled, cruel, dismissive of anyone beneath their social status. But that ends today. As the police led Chitty away, Ngozi looked directly at one of the customers recording. To everyone watching this, remember, the person you ignore, dismiss, or step over might be the one holding all the cards. Never underestimate the power of a betrayed woman seeking justice. The bank erupted in chaos as she walked toward the exit, her tattered wrapper billowing behind her like a queen's robe. But just before she reached the door, a young man in an expensive suit blocked her path. Mama, he said coldly. Or should I say, Mother? Ngozi's breath caught. Standing before her was Tunde, her 21-year-old son, his face a mirror of his father's contempt. So it's true, he said. You're alive, and you've come to destroy our family. The slap echoed through the banking hall as Ngozi's hand connected with her son's face. But it wasn't anger in her eyes. It was devastating heartbreak. What betrayal cuts deeper than a child turned against their mother? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to see how this revenge story unfolds. The penthouse apartment in Victoria Island had been Ngozi's sanctuary once, overlooking the Lagos Lagoon with floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the sunset perfectly. Now, sitting in her lawyer's office 3 days after the bank confrontation, she studied photographs of what Chitty had done to their home. Gold-plated fixtures, gaudy marble statues, and animal print everything. He'd turned her elegant space into something unrecognizable. Your son has been calling, Folake Adeyemi, her lawyer and oldest friend, said gently. Both of them, actually. Ngozi set down the photographs, her fingers trembling slightly. What do they want? Tunde wants to contest your claim to the company. Kemi. Folake paused. Kemi just wants to understand. The office door burst open without warning. Chitty's brother, Emeka, stormed in with two other men Ngozi recognized as board members of her company. The security guard rushed in behind them, apologizing profusely. "It's all right, Deli," Ngozi said calmly. "Let them speak." Emeka's face was twisted with rage. "You think you could just waltz back and destroy everything we built? Everything you built?" Ngozi's laugh was hollow. "I started Okonkwo Industries with my inheritance, my connections, my 18-hour workdays. What exactly did you build, Emeka, besides a cocaine habit and 3 failed businesses I had to bail out?" "The company is worth 10 times what it was when you disappeared," one of the board members, Mr. Kalu, interjected. "Chitty's leadership." "Chitty's leadership?" Ngozi pulled out a thick folder. "Would you like to see the real books, Mr. Kalu? Not the ones presented at board meetings, but the actual finances? The shell companies in Cyprus, the inflated contracts to his mistress's fake consulting firms, the 70% of profits being siphoned offshore?" The men exchanged uneasy glances. Folek smiled, sliding copies across the desk. "My client has spent 6 months conducting a thorough forensic audit. The authorities have copies of everything. You were all so eager to believe I was dead." Ngozi continued, her voice steady but cold. "Not one of you questioned the suspicious circumstances. Not one of you asked to see my body, to attend a real funeral. You were too busy dividing my company like vultures over carrion. We were told you had a mental breakdown." Mr. Kalu protested weakly. The doctors Chitty paid, said what he wanted them to say. Ngozi stood, her presence filling the room despite her slight frame. "But let's discuss the real reason you're here. The Swiss accounts." Emeka went rigid. "What about them? The ones containing 60 billion naira of embezzled funds? The ones you thought were untraceable?" Ngozi smiled. "I have a proposition." The door opened again, and this time it was Kemi, her 19-year-old daughter. The young woman stood uncertainly in the doorway, dressed in the designer clothes her father's crimes had purchased, but her eyes, those were Ngozi's eyes, seeking truth. "Mama." The word came out broken, uncertain. The room held its breath. Ngozi's composed facade cracked for just a moment before she rebuilt it. "Kemi, you shouldn't be here. I need to know." Kemi stepped forward, ignoring the men in the room. "Papa said you abandoned us, that you chose your career over your family, and when you couldn't handle the pressure, you ran away. And you believed him? What was I supposed to believe? I was 16. You just vanished one day. No goodbye, no explanation. Papa showed us the psychiatric evaluation. He said you tried to hurt yourself, that you were dangerous." Ngozi closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 3 years of forced medication, of electroshock therapy meant to break her mind, of isolation that nearly succeeded in making her forget who she was. "Your father had me committed against my will," she said finally. "Drugged, restrained, and locked away while he told the world I was dead." "That's a lot," Emeka shouted. "Chitty would never." "Mr. Emeka Okonkwo." A new voice interrupted from the doorway. Detective Inspector Adebayo entered with several officers. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and false imprisonment." As the police moved toward him, Emeka pulled out a gun from his jacket. The room erupted in screams as he pointed it at Ngozi. "You should have stayed dead." The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. But it wasn't Ngozi who fell. It was Emeka, tackled by the detective as the bullet shattered the window behind where Ngozi had been standing. Kemi had pushed her mother aside at the last second. Mother and daughter lay on the floor, breathing hard, staring at each other. "You saved me," Ngozi whispered. "I don't know what to believe," Kemi said, tears streaming down her face. "But I know Papa has been different since you left. Meaner. And the woman he brought home last month, the one he said was just a business associate. I heard them talking about you. About keeping you quiet." As the police dragged Emeka away, Ngozi helped her daughter to her feet. "There's so much you don't know, Kemi. So much I need to tell you." "The psychiatric hospital," Kemi said suddenly. "There was a nurse who called the house once, about a year ago. She asked for you. Papa said it was a wrong number, but she mentioned Yaba Psychiatric Hospital. I remember because Papa went white as a sheet. Nurse Adunni, Ngozi breathed. She saved my life. Mr. Kalu cleared his throat. Ngozi, about the company. The company will undergo a complete restructuring, she said firmly. Every transaction from the past 3 years will be audited. Anyone found complicit in the fraud will face prosecution. You'll destroy us all, he protested. No, I'll destroy the thieves and rebuild with honest people. Ngozi turned to Folake. Schedule a press conference for tomorrow. It's time Lagos knew the truth about the Okonkwo family scandal. Kemi grabbed her mother's hand. What about Tunde? He's been completely brainwashed by Papa. He thinks you're the enemy. Then I'll have to show him otherwise. Ngozi squeezed her daughter's hand. But first, we need to visit someone. An hour later, they stood outside Yaba Psychiatric Hospital. The building loomed gray and oppressive, its windows barred, its walls stained with years of neglect. Ngozi's body began to shake involuntarily. Mama, we don't have to do this, Kemi said. Yes, we do. Ngozi forced herself to walk through the gates. You need to see where your father kept me. The smell hit them first, disinfectant failing to mask decay and despair. Patients wandered the corridors in hospital gowns, some talking to invisible companions, others simply staring at nothing. The walls were painted a sickly green that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Room 43, Ngozi said, leading them down a narrow hallway. For 3 years, this was my world. The room was tiny, barely larger than a closet. A metal bed with restraint straps, a bucket in the corner, scratch marks on the walls where someone, Ngozi, had tried to claw their way out. Oh, Mama, Kemi sobbed, falling to her knees. Mrs. Okonkwo, a familiar voice called out. Nurse Adunni appeared, older and grayer, but with the same kind eyes that had kept Ngozi sane. I knew you'd come back. You saved me. Ngozi embraced her. Why? Why risk everything? Because I knew you weren't sick. The medications they forced on you, the doses, they were meant to break your mind, not heal it. Dr. Fashola was paid well to keep you here indefinitely. Dr. Fashola is still here. Nurse Adunni's face darkened. He's the chief administrator now, promoted after you escaped. There are others too, women like you, locked away by husbands who wanted their money, their freedom. Ngozi felt rage building in her chest. How many? At least 12 that I know of. All wealthy, all declared mentally incompetent by the same group of doctors. Mama, Kemi said urgently, looking at her phone. Papa's been released on bail, and he's holding a press conference. He's saying you're still mentally ill, that the bank incident was a delusion. On the screen, Chitty stood before a crowd of reporters, Tunde beside him, both wearing matching expressions of practiced sorrow. My wife has suffered from severe mental illness for years, Chitty was saying. This recent incident only proves she needs help. I'm petitioning the court to have her recommitted for her own safety. He's going to try to have you locked up again, Kemi gasped. Ngozi smiled grimly. Let him try. Nurse Adunni, I need the records. All of them. Every forced admission, every bribed doctor, every woman trapped here by her husband. That's dangerous, the nurse warned. These men have power, connections. So do I. Ngozi pulled out her phone. And unlike 3 years ago, now I have proof. But as they turned to leave, they found the corridor blocked by Dr. Fashola himself, flanked by 2 large orderlies. Mrs. Okonkwo, he smiled coldly. I heard you were back. How fortuitous. We've just received a court order for your immediate readmission. The orderlies stepped forward, syringes in hand, and Ngozi realized with dawning horror that Chitty had orchestrated this all along. The press conference was a distraction. This was the trap. Can Ngozi escape the psychiatric hospital a second time? Share this story with someone who loves a good revenge plot, and comment what you think happens next. The syringe glinted under the fluorescent lights as the orderly stepped forward. Ngozi's body remembered this, the forced medication, the helplessness, the slow descent into chemical fog. But she wasn't the same broken woman from 3 years ago. That court order is fake. Folake's voice rang out from behind Dr. Fashola. The lawyer stood with Detective Inspector Adebayo and 6 police officers. And you, Dr. Fashola, are under arrest. The doctor's confident smile faltered. On what grounds? falsifying medical records, accepting bribes, false imprisonment, and medical malpractice. The detective held up his badge. We've been investigating this hospital for 6 months, thanks to tips from an anonymous source. Ngozi glanced at Nurse Adunni, who kept her face carefully neutral. You can't prove anything, Dr. Fashola protested as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Actually, we can. Folake pulled out a tablet, showing a video. On screen, Dr. Fashola sat in what looked like a hotel room, counting stacks of money as Chitty's voice said clearly, "Keep her sedated. I don't care what it takes. Double the doses if necessary." "Where did you get that?" the doctor demanded. "Your girlfriend," Adebayo said simply. "The one you've been cheating on your wife with? She's been recording everything for months. Apparently, you promised to leave your wife for her, but never did. Hell hath no fury, doctor." As they led him away, Ngozi turned to find Kemi filming everything on her phone. "For evidence," her daughter said, "and maybe for Twitter. The world needs to know what happens to women in places like this." They moved through the hospital, and Ngozi stopped at each door where a woman was wrongfully held. Room after room revealed the same story. Successful women, wealthy women, independent women, all locked away by husbands who wanted their assets, their freedom, their erasure. "We're getting them all out," Ngozi declared. "Every single one." By the time they reached the hospital's administrative office, news vans had surrounded the building. Chitty's press conference had backfired spectacularly. Instead of controlling the narrative, he'd drawn attention to the very crime scene he'd created. Inside the office, Nurse Adunni pulled out hidden files. "I've been documenting everything for 2 years. Every forced admission, every bribe, every woman who begged for help while everyone ignored their pleas. This is bigger than just Chitty," Folake observed, scanning the records. "This is a conspiracy. Multiple wealthy men, all using the same playbook to eliminate their wives." Ngozi's phone rang. Tun's name flashed on the screen. She hesitated, then answered. "How dare you?" Her son's voice exploded through the speaker. "Papa is being humiliated because of your lies. You're destroying our family." "Tun, no, you don't get to speak. You abandoned us. You chose your mental illness over your children. And now you're trying to steal everything Papa built while you were gone." "Your father built nothing," Ngozi said quietly. "He stole it. From me, from the company, from our family's future." "Liar." The venom in her son's voice cut deep. "I'm going to testify against you. I'll tell everyone how unstable you were before you left. How you used to lock yourself in your office for days. How you forgot our birthdays because work was more important." "Those were lies your father told you," Kemi interrupted, grabbing the phone. "Mama never forgot our birthdays. Remember my 13th party? The one Papa said he organized? I found the receipts, Tund, in Mama's handwriting. The purple unicorn theme I wanted so badly. That was her, working from that hospital prison, somehow still trying to give me a perfect day. That's impossible. I have the receipts. I have photos Papa didn't know existed. The planning company confirmed it. Even locked away, drugged out of her mind, Mama was still trying to be our mother." Silence stretched across the line. Then Tun's voice, smaller now. "That can't be true. Come to the house," Ngozi said. "The real house. Not the gaudy monument to excess your father created, but our home. The one in Ikoyi I bought before I met him. I'll show you everything." 2 hours later, Ngozi stood in her original home, the one Chitty had told the children she'd sold. It had been maintained perfectly by the elderly couple she'd hired as caretakers, believing she might someday return. Tun stood in the doorway, his anger warring with confusion. Behind him, 3 of Chitty's lawyers waited in a Mercedes, clearly having driven him here to confront his mother. "This house shouldn't exist," he said. "Papa said you sold it to fund your treatment." Ngozi led him to a room he'd forgotten, his childhood nursery preserved exactly as it was. The walls covered with the airplane wallpaper he'd picked, the model jets still hanging from the ceiling, the growth chart on the door frame marking his height until age 7, when Chitty had moved them to Victoria Island. "You love planes," Ngozi said softly. "You wanted to be a pilot. Every night, I tell you stories about flying above the clouds, seeing the whole world spread below. You'd fall asleep, making airplane sounds. Stop it, Tun's voice cracked. She pulled out a box of videos, old recordings on a dusty laptop. Watch, she said simply. On screen, a younger Ngozi pushed Tunde on a swing, both of them laughing. Another video, her teaching him to ride a bike, Chitty nowhere in sight. Another, her staying up all night when he had pneumonia, singing the Yoruba lullabies her mother had sung to her. Papa said these didn't exist, that you were too busy with work. I was building the company, yes, but never at your expense. Never at Kemi's expense. Ngozi pulled out financial records. Every major deal I closed, I rushed home for bedtime. Every business trip, I called for your goodnight stories. Your father was the one who was absent, Tunde. He was the one with mistresses in every city. The young man sank into a chair, his carefully constructed worldview crumbling. The woman at the bank. At ease. She wasn't the first. She wasn't even the fifth. But he said he only started seeing others after you abandoned us. Tunde, Kemi sat beside her brother. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. I wanted to know the truth about Mama. Do you want to know what I found? She pulled out a folder thick with evidence. Papa has been cheating since before we were born. 12 women that we can document. 3 outside children he pays support for secretly. One of them is only 2 years younger than you. Tun's hands shook as he looked through the evidence. Photos, bank transfers, hotel receipts dating back 20 years. This can't be real. DNA tests, Kemi added quietly. I had them run on the children. There are half-siblings, Tunde. You have a brother in Abuja who looks exactly like you. The sound of tires screeching made them all look up. Through the window, they watched Chitty's lawyers speed away, abandoning Tunde now that the meeting wasn't going as planned. They left me, he said numbly. That's what they do, Ngozi said. When you're no longer useful, when you can't give them what they want, they leave. Her phone rang again. This time it was her CFO. Madam, we have a problem. The board is calling an emergency meeting. They want to vote you out as CEO, claiming mental incompetence. When? Tonight, 8 p.m. Mr. Kalu has gathered enough votes. He says if you don't step down voluntarily, they'll release a psychiatric evaluation claiming you're still unfit. Ngozi looked at her children. Then we go to war. We, Tunde asked, looking up with tears in his eyes. If you're ready to hear the truth. All of it. Mama, Kemi said urgently, checking her phone. Papa just posted something. He's claiming you kidnapped us. There's an Amber Alert being issued. Through the window, police sirens wailed closer. But these weren't Inspector Adebayo's officers. These were different units, ones Chitty had connections with. He's trying to have us all arrested, Ngozi realized. If I'm in jail, I can't attend the board meeting. He keeps control of everything. The police cars surrounded the house, officers emerging with weapons drawn. A helicopter circled overhead, its searchlight flooding the room with harsh white light. Ngozi Okonkwo, a voice boomed through a megaphone. You're surrounded. Release the children and come out with your hands up. Tunde looked at his mother in horror. He's really going to do this? He's going to have you arrested for kidnapping your own children. Unless we stop him first. Ngozi pulled out her phone, activating an app. I've been preparing for this moment for 6 months. Time to show Lagos who Chitty Okonkwo really is. But before she could press send, the lights went out. The house plunged into darkness as the sound of breaking glass echoed from downstairs. Someone was breaking in, and it wasn't the police. In the darkness, Ngozi grabbed her children's hands, pulling them toward the panic room she'd installed years ago, one Chitty never knew existed. The sound of footsteps pounded up the stairs, multiple sets, moving with military precision. In here, she whispered, pressing her thumb to the biometric scanner. The hidden door swung open silently. Inside the reinforced room, monitors flickered to life, showing security camera feeds throughout the house. 6 men in black tactical gear moved systematically through the rooms, but these weren't police officers. No badges, no identification. Mercenaries, Tunde breathed. Papa hired mercenaries? Not Papa, Ngozi said grimly, recognizing the lead figure. That's Dmitry Volkov, Russian mafia. Your father owes them 40 billion naira from a failed arms deal he tried to broker using my company as cover. Kemi gasped. Arms dealing? Among other things, Ngozi pulled up files on the panic room's computer. Your father isn't just a thief and an adulterer. He's been using Okonkwo Industries to launder money for international crime syndicates. I discovered it 6 months ago. On the monitors, they watched Dimitri speak into his phone in Russian. Ngozi activated the audio translator sheet installed. The woman and her cubs are here somewhere, Dimitri was saying. Okonkwo wants them all eliminated. Make it look like a murder-suicide. The crazy wife kills her children, then herself. Kemi covered her mouth in horror. Tun's face went ashen. Papa wants us dead, he whispered. We're witnesses, Ngozi said. You know too much now? And with us gone, he inherits everything through the forged will he created. But the police are outside. Look closer. Ngozi pointed to the monitors showing the exterior. The police cars were leaving, called away by a fake emergency across the city. Your father has connections everywhere. By the time real police arrive, we'll be dead. What do we do? Kemi asked, her voice steady despite her fear. Ngozi smiled grimly. We broadcast everything. Live. She pulled up her streaming app, the one connected to multiple platforms simultaneously. With 40 million followers across social media, accumulated during her 6 months of secretly rebuilding her empire, she had an audience waiting. But they'll find us, Tunde protested. This panic room can withstand a rocket launcher. And in 10 minutes, it won't matter. Ngozi began typing rapidly. I'm uploading everything to the cloud. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence against your father and his associates. She turned on the live stream. Immediately, thousands of viewers flooded in. Lagos, Nigeria, the world. My name is Ngozi Okonkwo, and I'm broadcasting from my home where Russian mercenaries hired by my husband are trying to kill me and my children. She held up her phone, showing the security feeds. This is happening right now. The view count exploded, 50,000, 100,000, climbing rapidly. Comments flooded in expressions of shock, support, and calls to action. On the monitors, Dimitri suddenly pressed his earpiece, his face contorting with rage. Someone was telling him about the broadcast. Find them now, he roared in accented English. Mama, Tunde pointed to one screen. Someone's coming. A figure moved through the back garden, alone, avoiding the mercenaries. The person wore a hood, but moved with familiar grace. Nurse Adunni? Kemi recognized her walk. But when the figure reached the back door and looked up at the camera, pushing back her hood, all three of them gasped. It was Amara, Chitty's supposed mistress from the bank, but her face was different now, harder, professional. I'm Detective Superintendent Amara Okafor, she said directly into the camera. Deep cover, investigating the Okonkwo crime syndicate for 2 years. Mrs. Okonkwo, I know you can see this. Input code 7-7-9-4 into your security system. It will alert my team. It's a trap, Tunde warned. No. Ngozi studied the woman's face. She's the one who's been feeding me information. The recordings, the documents. She's my anonymous source. She input the code. Immediately, the house was flooded with legitimate police, special forces who'd been waiting nearby. The mercenaries, caught between cameras broadcasting their every move, and armed officers, began surrendering one by one. But Dimitri didn't surrender. He pulled out a detonator. The whole house is wired. Amara's voice crackled through the intercom. Get out now. Mama, Tunde pointed to one screen. They've found the basement entrance. On the monitor, Dimitri's men kicked open the wooden door that led down to the storage cellar, directly above the panic room. Dust and splinters filled the air as they descended, flashlights sweeping every corner. Ngozi's heartbeat thundered in her ears. They're close, Kemi whispered. Ngozi typed furiously. Uploading final batch. 97% complete. Suddenly, the feed on camera 7 went static. Then camera 8. One by one, the monitors flickered out. They've cut the power lines, Tunde said, panic edging into his voice. Ngozi moved to the far wall, pressing a hidden switch. A concealed drawer slid open, revealing a sleek handgun and a stack of USB drives. Take this, she said, handing the gun to Tunde. Safety off means up. Only use it if you must. He hesitated. I've never fired a gun, Mama. Neither had I, until the night your father had me committed. A loud thud shook the reinforced door. The mercenaries had reached the hidden steel barrier separating the panic room from the rest of the basement. They found it. Kemi's phone buzzed. It was Inspector Adebayo. Ngozi put the call on speaker. Madam Okonkwo, stay calm. His voice came through the static. We're tracking the live feed. SWAT is en route. We've also traced the IP addresses of your husband's offshore accounts. Interpol is on it. How long? Ngozi asked. 10 minutes, maybe less. We don't have 10 minutes. Another boom rattled the room, this time bending the steel slightly inward. Dmitri barked something in Russian. One of his men began setting up what looked like a small explosive. They're planting charges. Kemi cried. Ngozi opened the final encrypted folder on her laptop. Then we moved to phase 2. She pressed a key, and the screen displayed a single word, expose. All across social media, Ngozi's pre-scheduled posts exploded online. Bank records, voice recordings, hidden camera videos, photos of forged documents. Every secret chitty had buried now lived forever in the digital world. From downtown Lagos to Abuja to London, the story trended instantly. Hashtag Okonkwo scandal. Hashtag betrayed wife fights back. Hashtag justice for Ngozi. In the panic room, the upload reached 100%. Ngozi exhaled shakily. It's done. The blast came seconds later. The entire wall shuddered, cracks snaking across the ceiling. Smoke filled the air, but the steel held, for now. Through the settling dust, they heard Dmitri shout, another charge. Double it. Kemi began coughing. We'll suffocate in here. Ngozi looked at her children. The fear, the exhaustion, the innocence they were losing far too quickly. Not if we escape first. She pressed another hidden panel. The floor vibrated. Then a section of tiles slid aside, revealing a narrow tunnel lit by dim blue lights. Tunde stared. You built an escape tunnel? After I started suspecting your father's business deals. Yes. It leads to the neighbor's compound. Go, both of you. What about you? Kemi grabbed her mother's arm. I'll hold them off until you're clear. No, Tunde shouted. We're not leaving you again. Ngozi's eyes softened. You are my future. I survived 3 years in a psychiatric hell to see this moment. Don't waste it. The door groaned. Metal twisted. Smoke hissed from the melting lock. Ngozi shoved the USB drives into Tunde's hand. Give these to Inspector Adebayo. Don't stop for anyone. As they crawled into the tunnel, Ngozi turned back to the computer and whispered, for every woman silenced, for every truth buried. She hit the emergency beacon switch, an alarm that sent her coordinates directly to Interpol and the Nigerian Special Crimes Unit. The steel door burst inward. Dmitri entered, coughing through the smoke. End of the line, madam. Ngozi stood tall, backlit by flickering emergency lights, a gun in her trembling hand. Tell Chitty he married the wrong woman to betray. Dmitri smirked. He said you'd say something dramatic. Before he could fire, Ngozi shot first. The bullet grazed his shoulder, knocking him off balance. His men returned fire, the sound deafening. She dove behind the console, returning 2 more shots, buying precious seconds for her children. Far above, police sirens wailed again, closer this time. Tunde and Kemi burst out of the tunnel into the neighbor's compound, gasping for air. Mama! Kemi screamed, turning back. But a massive explosion rocked the ground, throwing them off their feet. The Okonkwo mansion lit up in orange flame. Mama! Neighbors screamed as glass shattered for blocks. Inside the inferno, Dmitri staggered out of the collapsing hallway, bloodied and furious. But there was no sign of Ngozi. Hours later, firefighters doused the last of the flames. Investigators found no body. Only Ngozi's torn wrapper near the panic room door and her broken phone beside a bullet casing. News outlets around the world broadcast the footage. Some said she died a hero. Others believed she escaped. But as dawn broke over Lagos, a video quietly uploaded to Ngozi's verified channel. Her face appeared, bruised, smoky, alive. They tried to burn me, she whispered. But you can't kill the truth. The video ended with one chilling promise. Next, I'm coming for Chitty. Lagos awoke to chaos. By sunrise, #Ngozi Lives was the #1 trending topic worldwide. The 30-second video of a soot-covered Ngozi Okonkwo, alive, defiant, and whispering "You can't kill the truth," had shattered every narrative the press had spun overnight. Police were flooded with calls. Journalists camped outside Okonkwo Industries headquarters. Protesters carried placards demanding Chitty's arrest. And somewhere in the noise, Chitty himself sat alone in a darkened penthouse overlooking Victoria Island, his whiskey glass trembling in his hand. "She survived," he muttered, staring at the paused frame of her video. "That woman survived everything." Across the room, Emeka paced nervously. "We should leave Nigeria now. The accounts are compromised. Interpol has warrants." Chitty slammed the glass down. "No, we stay and end this properly." He turned toward Dimitri, who sat in a sling, bandaged but alive. "You fail me once. You won't fail again." Dimitri's eyes were cold. "You said she'd be unarmed. You didn't mention she was trained." "Trained?" Chitty laughed bitterly. "She learned survival in my house. I made her what she is." But even as he spoke, Chitty's phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. One line only. "I warned you, husband. Now I'm coming for what's mine." "No." The phone slipped from his fingers. Emeka stared in horror. "She's taunting you. We're declaring war," Chitty whispered. Far from the glittering skyline, in a safe house deep within Ikorodu, Ngozi sat by candlelight. Her arm was bandaged, her hair was singed, but her eyes burned with purpose. Kemi and Tunde sat beside her, exhausted but safe under police protection. Inspector Adebayo entered quietly, removing his cap. "Madam, you've caused a storm. Half the nation thinks you're a ghost." "Good," Ngozi said calmly. "Ghosts are hard to kill." He handed her tablet. Interpol confirmed it. The accounts, the offshore transactions, the false shell companies, all linked to your husband. "We're freezing them as we speak." Ngozi scrolled through the files, seeing millions redirected from Okonkwo Industries into Chitty's private holdings. "He thought I'd never find this," she murmured. Adebayo nodded. "With your evidence, he won't walk free. But he's still dangerous. Our informants say he's gathering loyal men to flee by sea tonight." Ngozi's jaw tightened. "Not tonight." Tunde looked at her nervously. "Mama, you're not going after him again, are you?" She turned to him softly. "I didn't fight to survive, just to hide, my son. I fight to finish what he started." That night, under the dim moonlight of Tarkwa Bay, waves slapped against the rusted hull of Chitty's private yacht. His men loaded briefcases and crates, money, documents, passports. "Once we reach open waters," Dimitri said, "we vanish. You'll have new identity papers waiting in Brazil." Chitty nodded, adjusting his coat. But as he stepped aboard, a faint drone-like hum filled the air. "Do you hear that?" Emeka asked. Suddenly, a small drone hovered into view, its camera light blinking red. Chitty's blood ran cold. "No!" The drone's speaker crackled to life. Ngozi's voice echoed through the dock. "Running again, Chitty?" The mercenaries opened fire, bullets ricocheting off crates. The drone exploded in sparks, but not before it transmitted everything. Within seconds, millions online saw the live feed. Chitty, Dimitri, and Emeka loading stolen cash onto a yacht in the dead of night. Every major news outlet streamed it. Comments flooded in. "He's escaping. Ngozi got him again." "Justice for Ngozi." In the chaos, Adebayo's SWAT team surrounded the pier. "Police, drop your weapons." Gunfire erupted. Dimitri fired back, covering Chitty's retreat into the yacht's cabin. But inside, waiting in the shadows, stood Ngozi, dressed in black, her left arm in a sling, her right hand holding a phone. "Hello, husband." Chitty froze. Impossible. Nothing's impossible for the woman you underestimated. She pressed play on the phone, a recording of his voice from years ago. "No one will ever believe you, Ngozi. You're nothing without me." She stepped closer. "You were wrong, Chitty. They all believe me now." He lunged at her, but she ducked, slamming his arm against the wall. The gun clattered away. Dimitri burst in, gun raised, only to be taken down by Adebayo's team storming the cabin. Ngozi pinned Chidi to the floor as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "You wanted to destroy me," she said, her voice trembling with controlled fury. "But you taught me everything I needed to fight you." Adebayo nodded to his men. "Take him," Chidi spat. "This isn't over." "You think prison can hold me?" Ngozi leaned in close. "It's not prison holding you, Chidi. It's the truth." Hours later, as dawn painted the Lagos horizon gold, Ngozi stood outside the police station surrounded by flashing cameras. Reporters shouted questions. "Madam Ngozi, how does it feel to bring down one of Nigeria's most powerful men?" She smiled faintly. "It's not about power. It's about freedom." Kemi hugged her tightly. "You did it, Mama." Tunde, standing beside them, whispered, "What happens now?" Ngozi looked up at the sunrise. "Now we rebuild." She didn't know what the future would hold. Lawsuits, trials, endless media chaos. But for the first time in years, the weight had lifted. Her scars burned, but her spirit soared. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed. A new message. No name. Just 4 words. "You forgot about me." Her eyes widened. She looked up slowly toward the horizon, and the camera panned out, fading to black. The message burned on Ngozi's phone screen like an omen. "You forgot about me." For a long moment, she couldn't move. She stood outside the courthouse, sunlight glinting off the glass doors, the roar of reporters fading behind her. The message came from a number she didn't recognize, but the words struck deep. She read it again, then again. "Inspector Adebayo," she called softly. He was already walking toward his car, but turned quickly when he saw her face. "What's wrong, Madam Okonkwo?" She handed him the phone. His brows furrowed. Could be a threat. Could be a bluff. "No," Ngozi said quietly. "It's a memory." That night, at the safe house, while Kemi and Tunde slept in the next room, Ngozi sat alone in front of her laptop. The glow from the screen highlighted her tired eyes. She opened the encrypted backup folder she hadn't touched in years, the one that contained her husband's darkest secrets. She scrolled past files of financial corruption and stopped at one labeled simply Project Rebirth. Inside were photos, videos, and documents she'd never seen before. Her hand trembled as she opened the first image. A small medical ward, and 4-line, and a familiar face on a gurney. Her breath caught. It was Nurse Adunni, the same woman who had secretly cared for her in the psychiatric hospital years ago. The woman who had vanished the day Ngozi escaped. And below the image was a signed authorization form. "Approved by Dr. Chidi Okonkwo." Ngozi scrolled faster. The files revealed an illegal experiment Chidi had funded years ago. Human trials, unethical surgeries, all buried under charity projects. Nurse Adunni hadn't disappeared. She had been silenced. The message wasn't from an enemy. It was from someone inside the operation. Someone still alive. She opened another file, a video clip. A dim room appeared on the screen, with a frail woman whispering hoarsely into the camera. "Madam Ngozi, if you're seeing this, they're still here." He wasn't the only one. Ngozi froze. "Still here?" she whispered. The clip ended abruptly with the sound of footsteps and a slammed door. By morning, Adebayo had traced the number. "It was sent from a burner phone near a warehouse in Apapa Port," he said grimly. "Smuggler territory." Ngozi didn't hesitate. "We go there tonight." He frowned. "Madam, this could be a trap." She met his eyes steadily. "So it was my marriage." That evening, the port lay cloaked in fog. Cargo ships loomed like ghosts on the dark water. Adebayo's tactical team moved silently between the containers, flashlights off. Ngozi followed, wearing a bulletproof vest under a long coat. Her heartbeat thudded like distant drums. A soft voice echoed from ahead. "Ngozi." Everyone froze. From behind a stack of crates stepped Nurse Adunni. Older, thinner, but unmistakably alive. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. "Nurse," Ngozi whispered, tears flooding her eyes. "I thought you were dead." "They tried," Adunni said, voice trembling. "But I escaped." Chidi was only one head of the snake. The others, the foreign investors, the doctors, they're still moving the funds, still covering the crimes. Before Ngozi could respond, headlights flared behind them. Black SUVs screeched to a halt, and armed men spilled out. "Down!" Adebayo shouted. Gunfire erupted, echoing off the containers. Ngozi dove for cover beside Adunni. "You led them here." Adebayo yelled over the shots. "No!" Adunni cried. "They were already tracking me." Bullets whizzed past. One of Adebayo's men went down. The port turned into chaos. Screams, smoke, and gunfire. Ngozi grabbed Adunni's hand. "This ends now." Together, they crawled toward a stack of fuel drums. Ngozi spotted a control box with blinking red lights, a communication hub for the smugglers' network. She recognized the symbol on its side, the same logo she'd seen in Chitty's offshore files. "This is it," she muttered. "The link to everything." She ripped open the panel, connected her flash drive, and started uploading the files she had collected over years. Data streamed across the screen, proof of trafficking, money laundering, illegal medical trials. A bullet struck the metal beside her head. Sparks flew. Adunni screamed. Ngozi ducked lower, shielding the laptop with her body. Then silence. She looked up. Adebayo's men had overpowered the attackers. 2 SUVs burned in the distance. Adebayo approached, his face covered in soot. "Is it done?" Ngozi glanced at the laptop. The screen read, "Upload complete." She smiled faintly. "It's done." He exhaled. "Then let's get you both out of here." But before they could move, a deep voice came from the shadows. "Not yet." Dimitri. Somehow, impossibly, he had escaped custody. His arm was still bandaged, his face half-burned from the explosion. He held a pistol steady at Ngozi's head. "You ruined everything," he hissed. "You think you won?" Ngozi didn't flinch. "I didn't think, Dimitri. I knew." As he pulled the trigger, a single gunshot rang out, but it wasn't his. Adebayo's shot hit first. Dimitri fell backward, dead before he hit the ground. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the waves whispered against the docks. Ngozi turned to Adunni. "It's over." Adunni nodded weakly. "For you, maybe, but for others the fight continues." Weeks later, in Abuja, the courtroom was packed as the final verdicts were read. Chitty and his accomplices received life sentences. International warrants went out for the foreign backers. Ngozi sat in the front row beside Kemi and Tunde, her hand clasped around a small locket containing a photo of Nurse Adunni. Outside, crowds chanted her name. "Ngozi! Ngozi! Justice for all women." When the judge's gavel struck the bench, the courtroom erupted in applause. Ngozi closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God." Months later, Okonkwo Industries reopened under a new name, the Rebirth Foundation. Ngozi stood on the stage of the grand reopening, wearing white, her scars faint under the soft lights. She looked out at the hundreds gathered, women, journalists, survivors. "Once, I was silenced," she said into the microphone. "Today, my voice joins thousands. This foundation will protect women who cannot protect themselves and expose those who think money can bury truth." Thunderous applause filled the hall. Kemi and Tunde stood proudly beside her. Adebayo and his team nodded from the audience. As the ceremony ended, Ngozi stepped outside into the evening light. The sky was calm for the first time in years. Her phone buzzed once more, a new message. She opened it slowly. It was a photo of a group of women in a rural clinic, smiling, holding banners that read, "Thank you, Ngozi." Below it, one line of text. "You didn't forget us." Hey. Ngozi smiled through her tears. For the first time in her life, she felt peace. The wind carried her whisper into the dusk. Justice always finds its voice.